When the 51st Army front at Ishun collapsed, Vice Admiral Oktyabrski put the naval base on alert and assumed command of the Sevastopol defense region. He also drafted thousands of civilians to complete 3 defensive lines around the city before the Germans arrived. However, there were very few troops available to defend the base. Only the 7th Naval Infantry Brigade, 2 battalions of sailors, 2 battalions of naval cadets, and the 61st Anti-Aircraft Artillery Regiment were available in late October. The Black Sea Fleet quickly brought in the 8th Naval Infantry Brigade from Novorossiysk, and 4 more naval infantry battalions were formed from the ship crews. The 7th Naval Infantry Brigade was fully formed on September 24th, when the 11th Army began fighting its way into Crimea. It had a strength of 4,860 men. The 8th Naval Infantry Brigade was formed on September 10th and had a strength of 4,300 men. The 8th Naval Infantry Brigade reinforced the cadets in the north, while the 7th held the center. With fewer than 20,000 troops to defend the base, Oktyabrski decided to rely heavily upon naval gunfire and General Major Morgunov's coastal artillery batteries to slow down the German advance and buy time until reinforcements could arrive. Although weak on the ground, the initial Soviet defense enjoyed near complete air superiority, with 61 aircraft of the 62nd Fighter Brigade dominating the skies around the city. Meanwhile, the divisions of the German 11th Army began spreading out into Crimea, chasing remnants of retreating Soviet forces and making a quick dash for Sevastopol. For this purpose, Manstein hastily formed a new motorized battle group Ziegler, equipped mostly with Soviet vehicles that were captured at Perekop and with a number of assault guns and Romanian tanks. Total strength of this battle group was less than 10,000 men. Sevastopol was captured after a short firefight on November 1st, and Battle Group Ziegler came under long-range fire from the guns of Maxim Gorky I when it attempted to advance south of the city. Manstein then moved the 11th Army headquarters into Sevastopol. The Romanian Mountain Corps soon arrived in Crimea and linked up with the 72nd Infantry Division and detached elements of the 22nd. These units advanced south to secure the Crimean Mountains and prevent Soviet forces from escaping via the southern ports. The combined German-Romanian force reached the southeastern coast on November 5th. On the eastern flank, the 22nd Division advanced along the coast, while the 46th, 73rd, and 170th Divisions used the main road that leads to the Kerch Peninsula. At Perpok, they soon clashed with the remnants of the 51st Army. The Germans promptly seized the port city of Feodosia and prevented the embarkation of enemy forces. By November 16th, the Germans had captured the town of Kerch at the far eastern end of the peninsula. Only a small number of Soviet troops were able to escape, and all their heavy equipment and vehicles were left behind. After capturing Kerch, Army Group South decided to withdraw the 73rd and 170th Divisions to reinforce the 1st Panzer Group in Rostov, just as the 1st SS Division was added to the 1st Panzer Group in October. This time, Manstein protested against this decision, arguing that he requires all available forces to capture Sevastopol. In the end, he was allowed to keep only the 170th. At Sevastopol, the Soviets were still trying to throw together a cohesive defense when forward observers detected the spearhead of the 132nd Infantry Division, advancing along the Black Sea coast on October 30th. According to some sources, the first unit to approach Sevastopol was actually the Romanian 6th Cavalry Brigade, and it soon came under fire from Battery 54, located at Mykolivka. The 132nd Division continued to advance along the western coast and attacked Battery 54, while the 72nd turned to approach Balaklava from the east. The Romanians remained in the Crimean Mountains to combat partisans and protect supply lines. Battery 54 held out until November 2nd. It was a well-defended position, and a dummy battery was set up nearby to draw enemy fire. The Germans spent 2 hours attacking the dummy battery until they realized their mistake. When they directed their artillery support to the actual battery, they attacked and gained the position by nightfall, but some of the Soviet survivors had managed to escape to the coast, where they were picked up by a minesweeper. Others escaped to nearby villages and later joined the partisans. Other elements of the 132nd Division reached the fortified positions along the Kacha River on November 1st and soon ran into the first elements of the 8th Naval Infantry Brigade. Construction for the first 2 bunkers in this area began in June of 1941. Most of the work was done by the 7th Naval Infantry Brigade, and construction was suspended twice to send the men to work on other strongpoints. Bunkers 1, 2, and 36 received 46mm anti-tank guns. Other bunkers were equipped with larger guns, and orders were issued for the construction of even more bunkers. When the Germans attacked, only 8 of those bunkers had been completed, however. By nightfall on November 2nd, the 132nd Division reached the Dvankoy strongpoint and the railway bridge over the Belbek River. The Dvankoy strongpoint was the largest of the strongpoints built around Sevastopol, and it played an important role in holding up the Germans during Manstein's first offensive on the city. It included 9 bunkers and 2 anti-tank ditches, but it lacked anti-aircraft protection, and only 6 machine gun emplacements covered the entire front. In the battle that followed, the 132nd Division sustained 428 casualties. Unfortunately for the Soviet defenders, their bunkers were too far apart and isolated to provide mutual support. This allowed the Germans to surround and attack these bunkers one by one. On November 5th, the Germans pressed the attack with 12 armored vehicles and a number of motorcycles. The anti-tank gun in Bunker 54 destroyed one of the vehicles and 3 motorcycles. Another vehicle was damaged by Bunker 59. Having failed to break through and capture Sevastopol in a surprise attack, the German command decided to disband Battle Group Ziegler. With the German advance hindered by only 2 brigades of naval infantry, Oktyabrski used his fleet to bring in 23,000 reinforcements from the Caucasus and from Yalta. Although the Luftwaffe was still relatively weak in Crimea, the Black Sea Fleet Military Council decided that only 1 naval gunfire support unit, consisting of 1 heavy cruiser, 2 light cruisers, and 7 destroyers, should remain to protect the base. At this point, it's worth mentioning a tragedy that occurred on November 7th. The hospital ship Armenia evacuated thousands of wounded, along with medical personnel of the Black Sea Fleet and civilians who feared that enemy seizure of Sevastopol was imminent. The ship headed first to Yalta, where it would pick up more passengers, before heading toward the Caucasus. With German troops already at the outskirts of Yalta, time was of the essence. Unfortunately, the Armenia had to wait for 2 destroyers to load reinforcements and supplies for Sevastopol. Armenia left the docks of Yalta by dawn. Although the ship was painted with red crosses, it was also armed with anti-aircraft weapons, and the Luftwaffe had intelligence reports that the hospital ship was previously used to transport troops and ammunition. When the ship was out at sea, it was sunk by medium bombers armed with torpedoes. All but 8 of the 5,000 people on board perished, making it one of the deadliest maritime disasters in history. This tragedy was made worse by Stalin, who forbade the evacuation of Sevastopol that same day and ordered the city to be defended at all costs, thus setting the stage for the second siege in Sevastopol's history. The reinforcements that were taken from Yalta to Sevastopol included troops of the 172nd Rifle Division. They arrived in their sector just in time to fight off the 50th Infantry Division on November 10th. The next day, the 132nd Infantry Division attacked and captured the village of Makenzia, about 5 kilometers east of Sevastopol Bay. In the south, the 72nd Infantry Division attempted to capture Balaklava, but it was worn down by artillery fire from a battery near the South Fort, located southeast of the city. Manstein deployed the 22nd Infantry Division in the north to enable a renewed offensive with 4 divisions, 15 artillery battalions, assault guns, and close to 350 aircraft. However, this offensive made virtually no progress. Heavy fighting took place at the South Fort, which was defended by a battalion of NKVD cadets. The fort changed hands several times before the Germans finally secured it on November 13th. Almost all cadets were killed in the fighting, and the fort was badly damaged by demolition charges. The last assaults were launched by the 50th Infantry Division against the bunkers in the Chorgun strongpoint. All of those assaults were repulsed, and the only significant loss for the Soviets was the destruction of the anti-tank gun in Bunker 69. Manstein called off the offensive on November 21st, after the 11th Army had suffered 15,000 casualties. Casualties on the Soviet side amounted to 16,500, more than half of them wounded. This was the last attempt by the Germans to break into Sevastopol in November, and it marked the end of the first offensive against the city. The pause that followed this first offensive lasted until December 16th. The swift conquest of most of Crimea, using mostly infantry divisions, was a tremendous achievement. But Manstein's mission was incomplete as long as Fortress Sevastopol was still in Soviet hands. Aerial reconnaissance informed the 11th Army headquarters that the Soviets are using the Black Sea Fleet to bring more supplies and reinforcements to Sevastopol. On November 26th, the Black Sea Fleet Military Council directed to Sevastopol 1 rifle division, 1 tank battalion, 62 artillery pieces, and 150 machine guns. Frustrated by his inability to push his way into Sevastopol with a series of hasty attacks, Manstein realized that he would have to organize a larger offensive in order to overcome the increasingly formidable defenses.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.